A very good evening and welcome to the Fourth Estate. Charles Mongo Shampagi, I am your host. Let me start by introducing my colleague and panelist, Chris Obore, Investigations Editor at the Daily Monitor. Chris, very nice to have you.
Thank you.
Next to Chris Obore is Godba Tumushabe. You've been a guest here several times.
Yeah.
Godba works with many institutions, but I'll introduce him as a policy analyst. But he also works for GLIS, which is the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies.
Correct.
First in East Africa, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Very nice to have you, Godba.
Thank you.
And Leonard Okello, who works with the Uhuru Institute.
Thank you. Good evening, viewers.
Discussion, yes?
Do you still have Great Lakes?
Great Lakes.
The lakes are great.
Yes.
Should it be,
The lakes are there.
And they are great.
should it be Glume Lakes region?
It
The lakes themselves are great. The region
will still give him a gliss. But lakes are there and they are great.
We're gonna
Now,
get-
how
we're
you
gonna
manage
ma-
them?
we're-
How you live
we're
with
gonna
them
make it
is your
great.
problem.
For heaven's sake, Charles, Lake Victoria is crying. Pollution. It's no longer great.
It's still a great
The
lake.
algae in that place.
We are going to change that.
The flower farms they still in Lake Victoria. Actually, it should be the Crying Lakes region.
The Crying Lakes region.
Yeah, Crying Lakes region.
We'll have that discussion another day. When political actors are lost in internal fights, when the country is looking on towards a journey to another election in 2016, whether it will be a ritual or one that fundamentally changes the course of democracy in this country, there are other people who are engaged in other discussions, especially to chart a way forward that guarantees free and fair elections. And Godba Tumushabe comes in with Leonard Okello to discuss, is a free and fair election possible in this country? Whether it is 2016, 2021 or 2026, we need to start the discussion now. Let me start with my colleague Chris Obore. Yeah, I and Chris have covered elections for a long time, spending nights in the newsroom trying to cover elections. And the results, sometimes you can tell where they will turn up. And the discussion that follows, there will be a by-election in Amuru, but that is because the incumbent decided to walk out of the job and take up another job. Is a discussion for a free and fair election in this country a worthwhile discussion to engage in, especially at this time? Looking at how the NRM, the major opposition party, the major party, which is in government, the main opposition party, FDC, other emerging parties, the older parties are behaving. Is that a viable question to be engaged with at this stage?
It is a very complicated question, and answering it requires a lot of careful thought, and I hope I will try to do that. Is it a viable discussion now? I don't want to say yes and no. I want to say it is not a viable discussion, but it is a worthwhile effort. Yes, it's a worthwhile effort if it can eventually lead us to a viable discussion. What then do I consider a viable discussion? To me, the issues of the country has now gone beyond free and fair elections. Free and fair elections, or absence of free and fair elections, is no longer the problem. It is simply evidence of a problem, that there is a problem, and we should look for the problem and then prescribe a better way forward.
You had investigations at the Monitor. Can you tell us what is that problem?
That's what I'm heading to. I think the problem in Uganda now is we have a nation that is psychologically and morally deformed. So we are psychologically and morally deformed. The citizenry is not there. The role of the individual is not there in managing the state. The power of the person is not there. It's been hijacked. So the people have accepted that powerlessness, and therefore they were given elections as a means for their power, which is true. A common citizen in a democracy has power in two ways, through the vote and through the tax. And because of that, they should be equipped to ask those others questions. But what we see is that citizens are seeing elections as just a ritual they're supposed to participate in. And once they do that, whatever happens there, they have no ability to question. Or if they must question, they should question in the manner designed by those whom they are questioning. And that is the biggest problem. So what do I expect other than just free and fair elections? I expect to see a liberating moral pressure in this country.
Godba, do you think that the efforts you're engaged with, with many Ugandans engaged with to push a campaign for free and fair elections, or an environment that guarantees free and fair elections, is a kind of environment that, as Chris says, would build up that momentum for citizens to value their tax, to value their vote.
I think actually I would really start off from where Chris stopped and I think Chris puts the problem accurately. That you really have a dysfunctional system in a country where citizens have become either parties or spectators of what is going on. And we have had moments of the same nature. The pre-independence period, we had pressure for independence until Ugandans ended up in Lancaster and hammered out an agreement that eventually delivered independence. During the days of Idi Amin,
if Ugandans had not pushed for that independence in the way we did, because if you look at what happened across the continent, different countries fought for independence in different ways.
Yes.
In Uganda, we didn't have to shed blood to gain independence, but the period generally tended to favor the withdrawal of the colonialist. Do you think that forms part of the problem that we have today, that we never, actually immediately after independence, in spite of Ugandans getting independence without bloodshed, we turned into the most chaotic country in the region?
No, but you see that's the point, that at independence we didn't have to have bloodshed, but we have had our own share of bloodshed in the 1970s, and after the brutality of Amin's regime, again Ugandans convened at Moshi and hammered out an agreement as exiles that more or less like managed the final assault on Amin's dictatorship. And so for me, at the end of the day, even when we have agreed that there's a problem, ultimately it is the population, it is us, the citizens, who have the primary responsibility to be able to reorganize ourselves and be able to re-engage and actually define the terms on the basis of which we're able to make progress. Unfortunately, this is not something that you ask from someone. It is us Ugandans who have to be able to say, we have to come together and have a conversation on how do we address the kinds of problems that Chris has just talked about.
How do you achieve that, Leonard? Because some people look at engagements, especially by civil society and NGOs, and say, you see, these guys are just thinking, and this is going to end nowhere. Yes, the Moshi conference is I don't know if it's still part of the curriculum in social studies in primary school, and if people still study it in secondary school. But the Moshi conference, yes, people went and hammered out a consensus. They came back here with blazing guns, and that sorted out the issues for a moment. We thought that had sorted out the issues. But if you listen to Chris, listen to Godba, and speak to Ugandans on the street, they'll tell you, this is not yet Uhuru, as you would say. The NRM is embroiled in some controversy. The Central Executive Committee has been meeting to work out on how they manage December 15th. The main item on the agenda is how you deal with the Mbabazi question. They will not tell you that. It will not be on the agenda that the chairman has outlined and published in the newspapers. FDC is embroiled in its own issues. UPC is embroiled. DP, the same thing. The newer parties, everybody is kind of scattered.
Yeah. You see, the thing about Uganda is that we are in the recent years become a country of opposites. You are told there's multi-party democracy, but when you scratch, there's actually no functional multi-party democracy. You are told this is a free society, and make a mistake of going out there and saying you are demonstrating a free society, and the police will hammer you and they send tear gas you and lock you down and accuse you of inciting violence, even if you're just talking about corruption, for instance. So really, the challenge we are dealing with is a serious mindset crisis in the country, in which many Ugandans have begun to accept the wrong opposite, the ugly one, the failed side of it. What should not be is what now we seem to be falling back and resigning into. And I think it is really unfortunate that should be happening in a country like this. A country so endowed, so rich. And so this discussion, and of course it's very easy for somebody to say civil society is going out or NGOs are going out, they're not going not to produce anything really. Yeah. But actually it's not a job of civil society to produce anything. What we are just doing is facilitating debate. Debate between Ugandans, and we've gone around this country. I personally went to 10 different regions.
Why are Ugandans not debating? I thought they engage in serious debate every day.
Because of many reasons. Like as many Ugandans have actually stepped back to accepting that theirs is to wait for the big man or somebody else out there to solve the problem. So others have also reached a point where they have so much fear. They fear to debate, or else I have been asking, are you sure in every meeting in Gulu, in Bushenyi, I think also in Masaka, somebody starts in the regional forum for free and fair election dialogue and says, are we safe? Are you sure we are safe to discuss here? So fear has gone through the country, and many Ugandans now even fear to discuss what is so obvious. Surely free and fair elections should be so obvious, but that's not so obvious in this country, and that's why we are coming for this dialogue.
I think that's what I'm seeing, the effort, perhaps. Let's not write off civil society. You know what's happening in Uganda is anger. People are angry at everyone because of higher expectation.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you expect a lot, you see God, but today, tomorrow, talking, another workshop, you say, because the change you want is not coming.
Exactly.
So those in civil society understand where people are coming from, the cynicism is coming from. But the point is, if you are looking for a convention, that's a better way. Because we are trying to reinvent Uganda. The Uganda you are seeing today is what Reverend Diana Nkesiga would say, a country chasing the new normal. What used to be abnormal is now the new normal.
It's
normal.
It's a new normal,
It's normal.
True,
and that's why I keep saying that until you cure that psychological and moral deformity in this country, that has now pervaded every sector, from the village. You are not going to have an election that will be meaningful. Neither will you have discussion that will be very meaningful, because the few elites will be courageous in espousing very beautiful principles, but will have no energy to carry them through. So it becomes still talk shows. They say, we are tired of these people who are talking on radios, because they don't see the energy that we can take them through. So what is required, as you are trying to do, is, can there be a discussion? Can there be a motion conference, not of elite who are in exile, but of citizens? Can we restore the power of that individual, that peasant in the Bundipujo, that what happens in Kampala has a direct cost or benefit to them in Bundipujo? If we don't have that, we are simply going to have either comprador elite, then the power struggles. You are going to see Mama and Baba Museveni become the issue. Then the next day, the issue of saying the other one, motion after motion. You go to an election, then people will say, for us, we have got the mandate. And once they have the mandate, they continue. They will tell you, security. God, you know all these issues. Security is not an end in itself.
No, it can't.
Security is meant to facilitate the well-being of the citizens. Now, if I'm going to a shopping mall, and then the security there makes me not to enjoy shopping, then the security has not impacted in me. So even the way you conduct security, the end result is Mangusha should be able to go to a place secure to enjoy himself. But we are seeing security reflecting the mindset of those who hold power. We are making you free, but go there, but
actually, my reading of it, I don't know what Godba thinks, is sometimes when you talk about the aspect of security, it is security of the hold of power being protected from me, the citizen.
No, no, absolutely. Actually, that we call it regime security. That the entire configuration of the security forces, of the intelligence forces, of the different militia groups you see around, they are all organized around regime security. They are not organized about the security of the citizen. No, if there is any security for the citizens, that is a consequence, not the primary objective. And the other point that I really want to highlight here for our listeners is that, you see, the difference between the organization of this national consultation and many other things that civil society has been involved in is that in this consultation, what you have are Ugandan civil society leaders working with many other actors to organize the consultation. Because we also know that as civil society organizations and NGOs, they have their own limitations, like any other institution, like Chris explained. So for us,
like the media,
the media, like everybody else. So what in our own conversation we've said, no, there must be, we must also step on the plate and say, besides me working with an NGO, the most important thing for me is that I'm a Ugandan and I'm a taxpayer. So my engagement in this in organizing this consultation has nothing to with me working for an NGO. I do this more because I think that as a citizen, I can make a contribution. And we've gone across this country in all the 14 regions of Uganda, the 14 regions being the ones that existed at independence. And we have, in each of these, in each of the regional forums we organized, we're having between 200 and 350 participants. One of the most exciting moments in these regional forums is where you see citizens step out of their affiliations. That you see people start discussing, and they are not FDC, they are not NRM, they are not what. They discuss, they are not Catholics, they are not Muslims, they are not Protestants. So you see people stepping out of their affiliations and say, we are Ugandans, let's talk about the future of our country. And for me, that's empowering.
They are not Japadora and Iteso.
No, they are not Japadora and Iteso.
Where you have to demonstrate by eating a rat to show that I am different from that guy. Chris, can we pick this up? Because we need to, I think the conference starts here.
Yes.
So we'll engage directly with the citizen who's watching us to see how we move forward after a short commercial break. We'll be right back. You're still watching The Fourth Estate, and welcome to this last segment. We're discussing, is a discussion for free and fair elections, not just in 2016 or 2021 or 2026. Is that a viable discussion to engage in now with Ugandans? Are you part of this discussion now? And the question is, you have an effort to create a discussion platform, a convention, not held in a foreign capital like many have, like the many that we have seen before, held right here in Kampala to discuss engagement in a process that leads to a permanent solution that anchors democratic leadership in this country. Leonard, you have an interesting theory. I have attended some of your discussions, and I did attend the regional forum in Fort Portal. I was complaining to Godba and the other guys that used to be called the Toro region. Yeah. So that
we call it Toro for purposes of this discussion. Yeah.
The Toro region. This Toro which went to Lancaster.
Something.
I know Chigezi, Ankole, Bukedi, Buganda, Sebei, Busoga,
Karamoja,
yes, with Nailango and Teso and Acholi. Those discussions have happened. What kind of do you see that level of engagement, that people move beyond one, their individual misery or our individual misery,
right,
our individual indifference, right, to political processes? Because the 1970s people withdrew. You're supposed to be home by 3 o'clock. You are home at 3 o'clock. During the 1980s, people knew how to cope with those situations. And then you have this burst of hope that comes after 1986. Which some people have called the Luero consensus. I think Godba's word is Luero consensus. and now, after almost 29 years of the Luero consensus, people begin asking the same question and saying, have we moved to a level where we objectively can say we can move on to the next stage as Ugandans? You have a discussion, you have drawn that map of we are all Bafuruchi. Yeah. In one or the other.
37 million Bafuruchi.
Now 37 million Bafuruchi, I'm just one of them.
Yes.
That construction, do we have that consciousness? Did you see that consciousness coming out of the regional forums?
It was very interesting listening to people in the regional forums. First of all, it is interesting to need all those consensus that Godba talked about up to the Luero consensus. All of them were either a result of somebody holding the gun and coming with their gun to build a consensus around forces of power. Even Moshi, they were having guns in their hands. You get the point? And Luero, they had guns, and that's gun politics disempowered the Ugandan citizen. This discussion, this dialogue we have been doing around the country are of Ugandan citizens who do not have guns. They have their laptops and they write the papers and they do project proposal all over the country. And that's the kind of thing, the kind of dialogue. There was nobody there coming with a gun or a power.
Laptops, that's quite some advancement.
That's
and iPads.
But the other thing which you just raised is that the the dialogue around who are we probably was one striking thing, an opening discussion that actually got many people reflecting. And I can tell you how many times, I don't know how many times I've been named professor all over the place because of that kind of dialogue. Because really the truth, if you look at Uganda carefully, all this fighting we are doing, the only indigenous peoples that we found here, our great-grandparents came and found, are actually the Batwa, the Ik, the Tepeth, only. The rest of us migrated into this place. Now, because we are all immigrants and we all Bafuruchi into this place, we should actually be a bit more disciplined Bafuruchi. Because
a bit more humble.
A bit more humble Bafuruchi. Because really, the owners of the land, we know, the tourists now come and pay us to go and see them.
To see the owners of the land.
See the owners, the people we
indigenous.
found, the indigenous people we found here, the Batwa, they pay us in Kampala, then we go and see them in the Mwabura Mountains, then come back, they pay us, then we go and see them. Then they pay us, then we go and see them in the mountains. That's where we have reduced the indigenous people. And by the way, that has been the story of almost all the indigenous peoples across the world. The immigrants come and take over because they're looking for opportunity, they take the land. But that dialogue took many people by surprise in the room, because many people said, this is our land, the other ones are foreigners. Then they woke up to realize that those who are calling others Bafuruchi are also Bafuruchi actually. It kind of brought a different form of dialogue in the room, in which people began to step out of I am, you are, and began to discuss. So actually we belong to this country together, we all travel here, and we should make the best use of this country. And I think if we are able to build a national dialogue around that kind of environment,
that consciousness,
you will see a situation where you find somebody coming to your Britain and say, you know what, Leonard, this is my first time to even think about the fact that my great-grandparents migrated and came here. The other one is that this is my first time to sit with FDC in a meeting and talk, or UPC and meet and talk with them in a meeting. Or this is my first time to talk with NRM in a meeting together for 2 days. And I realize, actually, they are not dialoguing, they're not talking to each other. They are all about what Chris talks about, power grabbing. Everybody wants to grab power. When we ask them, please remove your party jackets.
We begin by grabbing power, then we grab land, then we grab money,
everything.
then we grab
everything.
So that dialogue is actually what we are putting on the table. It's about building a national consensus about the future. Because if you, and we've told them, if you've gone in there because you want to fight with FDC or NRM or whatever party, or this is your chance now to fight with Museveni, you actually
That's the wrong forum.
You are not being useful for us. Please go home. You are not very helpful. Come in and dialogue about what does this mean for the future of this country. Because it's going to be electoral reform issues and constitutional reform issues. If what the discussion coming on the table are going to really make meaning and sense for the country. That's the reality of the country.
My understanding is that Cabinet has been pushing forward with electoral reforms. They wrote to the leader of opposition and told him to prepare the opposition proposals for reform by November 20th.
November 20th, which is next week?
Yes, November 20th, which will be on Wednesday. And I saw Wafula Gutu writing back and saying, there is this process that's coming up. Please give us time because we need to include the outcomes of that. So are you moving in tandem?
I hope they'll be reasonable enough to think, to listen to what Ugandans have said, because this is not my voice or Godbar's voice, or a few civil society leaders in Kampala. We have gathered outcomes from all these regional meetings, 14 of them, and the dialogues have been reached, and they have made, I can tell you, the number of issues that have come from the regions. Even these political party leaders that went around the country, many of them did not raise the outcomes issues that came from the regions.
How sustainable, Godbar, just before I come to you, Chris, how sustainable is a process like this? Because someone will say, Justice Benjamin Dodoki led a team of Ugandans who went across the country in 1989, 1990 to collect views about the making of a constitution. Now, less than 20 years later, we are discussing a new construction, because you're talking about electoral reform, you're talking about constitutional reform. And you seem to be speaking from the same script, because I have seen the government matrix, which has proposals from CEDU, the Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy, has proposals from the National Consultative Forum, has proposals from IPOD, has proposals that were left over in 2005, has proposals that were left over in 2009. All these have been put together. If you go through a process you have gone through again, what do you come out with, and how does this feed into this broader national discussion? Because I believe when you do the conference, 24th and 25th?
24th, 25th, and 26th.
It's not the end, it's the start of a discussion, I would imagine.
Sure.
What do you come out with?
Now, you see, essentially, one thing you need to realize is that we learn from history. For me, one of the most important lessons from our constitution-making process that ended in 1995 with the new constitution was the fact that when we promulgated that constitution, Ugandans thought we have arrived.
We have sealed the deal.
Yes, we've sealed the deal. We've created the rules on the basis of which we want to be governed, and we all retreated and relaxed. And then the rules started being rewritten again.
By 2005, we almost had a new constitution.
By 2005,
the manipulation started. The parliament immediately are elected after
exactly.
They increase the number of cabinet overnight.
And I think what we've learned from the Kenyan constitution-making process is how the Kenyans have remained vigilant in the way they defend the rules that have been enacted. So I think moving forward, for me, that is an important lesson to learn. Secondly, the question of sustainability, for me, I really don't think that it would be an issue, in the sense that many of us who are participating in this process as citizens, we have the total commitment to continue engaging, to continue dialoguing, ensure that all of us come together on the table and look to the future of this country beyond our short-term gains, our immediate gains, beyond our interests, because our belief is premised on the fact that this country is so rich. Leonard Doris shares this with some of the participants.
Wherever he has an opportunity.
Yes, wherever he has an opportunity. that the biggest percentage of land that is suitable for agriculture in East Africa is in Uganda. All the fresh water in this sub-region is almost in Uganda.
The Great Lakes,
yes, the Great Lakes. This is the country where, in all these countries, Uganda is one country where you can have 2 bumper harvests in a year without applying irrigation, fertilizers.
I'm going to cut your submission because we pretty much run out of time.
So basically, basically for us, this is something that we are doing for the long haul until we have a consensus that we all agree that this will take us into the future.
Chris, I need to come to you as we come to the end of this discussion. Working where you work and what you do, and for the time I've known you, there is always this tendency to box people or Ugandans. They tell you, Chris is a journalist. When he engages in a discussion, they say, no, you see, now that Chris is talking like NRM has bought him. Now he's talking like, no, he's an opposition. Now he's talking like this. How do you move beyond that caging of people to engage in this discussion, to say, you are in the media, but you're Ugandan. He's in civil society, but he's Ugandan. Wherever I might be, I'm Ugandan primarily. Yes. And we engage in a discussion that says, no matter whether you are in NRM, FDC, civil society, or in Chikubo, or doing a business at the border, you might even be a smuggler, but you're Ugandan primarily, and you have those interests. How do you move beyond? How do you move to that?
You see, sometimes some of those statements are made, but I always compare it to a doctor-patient situation. A patient can say anything because they're in trouble. Some of these Ugandans who label, they are the deformed. The deformed one. Yeah. So you don't get angry with them. You say that's how they are. They anticipate good, but they're not seeing it. So as a doctor, you just let it be. Some will say, you're not treating me, your medicine is useless, but he's sick, he doesn't even know the medicine.
They're giving me fake medicine.
Yeah, that's all, because they don't know. So sometimes, but that doesn't mean that society there is ignorant. Society is very powerful. For me, to get out of that situation, what God and the rest are doing are issues in the public agenda. For any change to happen, these things will move from the public to the government agenda. Until the government has bought into this and put it in the institutional agenda, that this is what the country requires and this is how we are going to address it. The convention thing should actually be done hand in hand, the citizens and the government. But unfortunately, the government has boxed itself first. We are in power. The God still want to come to power. Even when they want to just say, no, you are in power, but I want you to exercise your power for my good. They do not want. So government should put this issue into the agenda. You try, call the first conference, move on, but you must write formally to government. That is what we want. And demand that the government does it. If government does not do, the solution is always the person who talks, the citizen. They deform the citizen. You have to heal them. Your trouble should be a healing process, not getting decisions. Sometimes you are going like you're getting decisions there. You're getting wrong decisions.
Thank you,
Chris. Patient. Finally now, you know, Ugandan people have suffered from the poverty, of violence of poverty, political violence, military violence, but there is one thing to counter that violence, is what they call the moral violence. Those who are violated should organize the moral violence to counter the violence of poverty, the military violence. That's the battle I was telling you. Until you see the citizens' violence, which is moral, which can only be arrived at when you apply liberating moral pressure on those who are holding power. Yes, you're a capitalist, you own all this farmland, but that doesn't benefit us. We are human like you. Then that battle, God, you'll go to your grave as having helped awaken Uganda. You may not enjoy the fruits today. The problem with us, we want things of now and now. Let's
have the last one.
To have President Museveni buy into this, he's also a job on his own. Even him is now deformed by power.
Okay. Our time is out. We need to get out of here. Godba, this discussion about government and the citizen. When I meet a car with a red registration number plate, which is the official government number plate, and the driver is trying to push me off the road, I get more annoyed than when I meet Godba with a black number plate car trying to push me off the road. Or if the other one splashed water on me, I will get more angry, because you should treat your being there as a privilege.
Of course. Yeah. No, I mean,
and where do we lose that? And how do we restore that kind of discussion that says, yes, President Museveni, thank you very much, you're the President Fountain of Honor. If you're driving with a 40 convoy car, don't push everybody off the road.
No, you see, it happens because as citizens we allow it to happen. Because you see, what happens with the power is that the power, those who are involved in power grab, they normally take little by little. Little by little, eventually you find that you are left with nothing. So even with the road usage, you'll find the same problem with even with the taxation issue. That all of a sudden they say, we say, you don't have to pay tax. But actually, by government saying you don't have to pay tax and you clap your hands, you don't know how much you have lost, because you have lost your control.
It's a process of disempowerment.
Yeah, it's a process of disempowerment. Or you are a parent, you have children, you say, but you don't have to pay school fees for them. We'll pay school fees for your children. But you've basically been disempowered.
It's like someone telling you don't have to feed your children.
Absolutely. Like so it's a disempowerment. So I think for me, the national consultation is really a part of a process that helps us to reclaim our power as citizens, to be able to engage with government and with leaders, and those are leaders in government, leaders in political parties, because you see, even that problem is not just with government, that it is also in the political parties. It is also in the religious institutions.
Okay.
But I just want to end by saying that I would want to invite citizens really to follow this process very actively. The conference is going to take place, the consultation is taking place on November 21st to the 26th. And those who have been selected as delegates, they are going to be getting their accreditation letters beginning tomorrow. So really, and we are excited that this is eventually happening, because I think it can be beginning of a process where we can really have a much more enlightened and sober dialogue compared to throwing words at each other.
If you hadn't crafted it as a citizen's dialogue, would have asked our marketing people to send you an invoice. But Leonard, your last word. Yes.
Very participative.
It's easy.
Absolutely.
Very easy.
Absolutely.
It's very easy.
The last word.
Yeah, it's very easy to blame it on somebody else. Blame it on Chris, blame it on Godberg, blame it on Museveni, everybody. But every Ugandan must know that in the end of it all, it is our responsibility, each of us individually and collectively, to do something about the future of this country, the present and the future of this country. It cannot be somebody from outside.
But don't absolve leaders. If you can't be a leader, ship out.
What I'm saying is they are Ugandan citizens, and it is their responsibility too to be part of this. Everybody. The reason I say that citizens should stop just passing the blame is that it is our responsibility and time now to start asking these leaders to answer the questions about what they are doing about the future of this country.
Thank you very much. Our time is out. Our time is out. We need to get out of here. But I know that it's Angel Forum said to forward Greece. It's not forward Uganda.
no.
Yes, that's the advert. Yes, Uhuru and the other guys were engaging in this. I always argue, people have been sending these things of Libya, Libya before, Libya during Gaddafi, and Libya after Gaddafi with the Americans. And they say, whether you are Blaise Compaoré, Muammar Gaddafi, Hosni Mubarak, Bashir, or Nelson Mandela, or Robert Mugabe, or Yoweri Museveni, it is as much your responsibility to plan for what happens once you are out of power as when you are in power. Absolutely. And don't blame it on citizens.
Absolutely.
Our time is out. So I have met the Kalango.
If you are not a Juakali leader, that is. But in Uganda, Juakali kabisa.
Our time is out. We need to get out of here. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much, Leonard. Thank you very much, Wedba. Thank you very much, Chris. And thank you very much to you, all our viewers, for joining us. Tonight, do join us again next Sunday. Have a good night.
You know what?
You're still watching The Fourth Estate. And on The Fourth Estate tonight, we're starting the discussion. Is a free and fair election question a viable discussion for Ugandans to engage in? I've been following social media. You see activities that are going on across the country. The mood is on. People are beginning to prepare, identifying with candidates. The campaign paraphernalia is already out there. People are busy in the constituencies working and trying to mobilize the vote. Where the space is to do an objective discussion and say, how do we get to the next election and the election after that and make it meaningful? Chris, you had some question which we were discussing during the break. I want to pick it up from there.
Yeah, I've been sharing it with the God by even of air. The effort is a worthwhile effort, really. But for me, the focus should be giving a life to this citizen who has given up. Or this citizen who's playing along. So giving up and playing along are all evils that have affected governance in this country. So many people are playing along. You find them in NRM, they are playing along. They're in FDC, they are not even asking in account. They are playing along. They're in NGO, say, oh yeah, these days they say, God say that we go free, yeah, we go. Play along. It's even a worse people than giving up. Those who have given up, you tell them they have given up. But they play alongs are very dangerous people.
Chris, so is that guy watching you now? And they watch you because every time I've moved across this country, people tell me, wait, Chris, hey, Chris. On the Fourth Estate, people are discussing, people are engaging, people are following this. And they are waiting up to this time. They'll go to bed after midnight to watch you discuss. That's correct. And we find ourselves sometimes in a situation where we are putting the citizen there and others here, the power holders there, the NGO there. Everybody tends to be boxed in some corner somewhere.
My focus is bringing a citizen on board. There is a difference between broadcasting beautiful principles and having the energy to carry them through. So when I'm speaking here, I expect the citizen to carry these principles through because they are at that point. When I'm talking about them being disempowered, when I'm saying that you, a citizen, if they tell you that you have the power to vote today or you people choose whom you represents you, a citizen must know you are only responsible for choosing a decision maker. But you are never going to be responsible for what decisions they make. Yes, you are voting an MP, you have decided that this is going to be your decision maker in parliament. But you are not the one deciding in parliament. You are not even going to decide how he decides in parliament. So the question then is, you must have a shared value system. That's what we're talking about. If we are talking about civic competence, we are saying you in the village should not only be listening to somebody who has come to talk to you. What they call a consultation is for an MP to go to the village, call up people who have not had lunch for the 1 week, tell them to come, there is allowance, he talks to them, they go back home, he returns to Kampala and say, I was consulting my people.
They get an opportunity to drink soda on that day?
Yes, consultation here means that you summon the MP and tell him, please, this road, the other day there was an accident here, this road has never been done, and you know you're a leader. Why? We have told you there is this issue here, we sent you there on the basis of A, B, C, D. You haven't done. So that is dead because the citizen is totally, his power is diminished. His power is only to a vote and a tax. And even those who don't even pay a tax are worse. because they even have no moral authority to begin questioning anybody. They will tell them we are going to do this tax and they keep quiet. They say, police, you go. So that is what I'm saying.
They don't even vote.
Let us go first and restore the well-being, the power of this desolate individual who has been deformed both psychologically and morally, and make them believe that they are not subhuman, but they are human.
Leonard.
Yes, please.
One of the major questions, the question that Chris raised during the break was the political buy-in. Because it becomes difficult to imagine a discussion that doesn't have the NRM, and now the NRM is in, I don't know how many camps. There is the Museveni camp, there is the Amama camp. You need the Muntu camp. You need the Muntu, you need the Nandala Mafabi, you need Olaro Tunu, you need the other guy, you need Jimmy Akena in the same room. You need Norbert Mao, you need Lobert. You know, what kind of discussion can you have? If you need Rubaka, you need Mengo, but those have to contend with those have to contend with the Pentecostal movement.
Yeah.
You need Old Kampala, you need Chibuli. How kind of discussion can you have in this country?
You know, that is exactly, you know, if I can pick for what, Chris, you know, the big challenge in this country, because of what you've just described, the majority of Ugandan citizens are actually not voting. They are doing petty business during voting. They go, and you know, I was told this graphically in Lira, that 1 quarter bottle of Lira, quarter bottle of Uganda, you know, the small quarter bottle, it's for 5 youth, 5 young people, 5 people, then they go and vote, and the bottle costs 500 shillings. And 500 shillings for 5 people, that means each of them has sold their vote for 100 shillings for 5 years. So they're not even voted, because if you are voting Chris, I am taking a decision to second Chris. But if Chris has bought my vote for 100 shillings, it's even worse.
Does the vote matter?
That's the thing. The most for many of the voters out there, and it's been so revealing going around the country, is that many of them don't even care whether the vote matter. Many of them just think it is my chance to eat something today.
I thought that is actually a conscious and intelligent decision, because if the vote doesn't matter, you get the best out of it. It's like you're picking stuff out of your junkyard.
But frankly,
you're doing a car boot sale or a garage sale. You pick out because it doesn't. With or without it.
But precisely, this is a question. The question is for you and me. We should ask that question. And for every Uganda, we should ask: is it worth 100 shillings only for 5 next years?
But also, what Charles is saying is that then we should all give up. And we are saying that we cannot quit on our country. That's not an option. That if the citizens have been morally and psychologically deformed, that we cannot accept the status quo. So we have a responsibility.
Can I ask that you rephrase that question, that response, and you say, if we have been, because if you talk about the citizen, it appears like we're talking to someone else out there. If we have been morally, psychologically, and whatever
deformed.
What did you say?
Deformed.
Deformed.
And we are saying that's a status quo that we cannot maintain. And you see, I always tell my colleagues that a free and fair election is not bought from a supermarket, nor is it given to you. There is no leader who is going to say we are giving Ugandans a free and fair election. Ugandans must be able to claim it. And so our point, our approach is that each one of us has an obligation to be able to contribute to reclaiming.
But do you achieve that? How do you achieve that, Godba? Because Chris analyzed it very well at the beginning. We went to Lancaster to negotiate independence. We came from there. We fought amongst ourselves. We went to Tanzania, to Moshi, to negotiate, hammer out a way forward. We came back. We went to Luwero to try and hammer out that same same consensus to cure our deformity. You're talking about
means you have not got the God-based philosophy well. What I'm actually doing, I'm trying to, because I've not been in the design of the philosophy, but I'm trying to contribute what I would have contributed to the design. They are cognizant of all of these failings.
Absolutely.
That they exist. And I'm sure they are cognizant that this is not the panacea to the problem.
Precisely.
But this is part of action, citizen action.
Yeah.
But it's not the ultimate action. What would be the desired action is that every citizen gets to participate. But we know citizens don't participate in the absence of clear-headed leadership. It starts with leadership.
Yes.
And what do leaders want? This person who's selling a vote for 100 shillings looks to be the immediate person to blame.
But
That's the design. A leader should be embarrassed that the people I'm leading has cheap as
100 shillings.
Exactly.
But the leader is not worried. That is the
that's what
moral
it is.
deformity I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That you don't even care that a bottle of warrage is actually a disaster to these people you want to lead, but you're giving it to them. So while we all suffer this psychological and moral deformity, the leaders are moving on moral crutches. Completely. They
But
don't
they are able to
care.
move.
They are staggering.
The citizen is grounded.
You see?
These people moving on crutches are
Yes,
able to get from.
you see the point. So the issue now is, if you are talking about Lancaster, that was Lancaster. What we need God about to move with this, don't even be ashamed to be who you are.
No,
the
you
issue
can't.
now is, come out and say we are mobilizing citizens for a social movement to demand that we have a national convention. That we demand that Lukwago with the Musisi are in one house, discussing matters pertaining to Uganda. Museveni and Besigye and Otunu are there. The Catholics are existing.
They are all
The
there.
Pentecostals are there. The Morimori is there. The Renzururu is there. This is what we call a national convention. That should set the way forward. And now election,
Is that what you're doing?
election should only follow that we agree with
Oh,
this.
yeah.
Now this election must be conducted in this manner. But we
Is
can't.
that what you're doing?
It's essentially the logic, because you see, if you look at those conferences you mentioned, Lancaster was in London, Moshi was in Moshi, Ruwero was in Ruwero, and it was a fight. For the first time,
The discussion wasn't.
yeah,
what
the
you're doing
discussion
here.
was
Discussion
here.
different.
For the first time, we are organizing a national consultation where Ugandans of all walks of life, both from Uganda and the diaspora, are meeting in Uganda in a peaceful environment. So I would still think that it is some progress to the extent that we are here. Secondly, one of the most contentious issues in our planning process was how much time do we take to organize the national consultation? Because there was a school of thought who said citizens must be part of the agenda. They must contribute to the agenda of the national consultation. Another school of thought said, no, we can call delegates from the different parts of the country because there are costs involved, there is time involved, we meet in Kampala. And the school of thought that says citizens must be part of this conversation, must contribute to the agenda, basically was bought. And that's why we have had all these national forums, regional forums taking place in the country. The other contentious issue was whether the president should be invited to participate, to officially open the consultation. Because there are some of especially the political players who said, no, President Museveni, his presidency is an outcome of an illegitimate election. We don't recognize it. And many of us who want to create the kind of platform that Chris has described, we said, you see, President Museveni is the de facto president, whether you recognize him or not.
He is the president.
He is the president. So you can organize.
And he's a citizen of this country.
And he's a citizen of this country besides that.
And that's where the question is to both of you guys.
Yeah. So
Why not have President Museveni come and sit in this conference and discuss and engage with Ugandans on a level platform as a citizen, not by the virtue of the office that he holds?
But if you ask them to answer that question, then you are giving them too much to answer for unnecessarily.
yeah.
You and me should be asking President Museveni, why are you not sitting in the convention?
No,
And let me
but
tell them
I
the most
believe-
important thing for you is to, I like the openness you brought. Those who seek to exclude Museveni in
Yes.
the discussion about Uganda are daydreaming. You must have Museveni in the discussion.
Precisely.
You
And
must
that-
have
that is what our
Museveni
position
in the
is.
discussion.
Yeah.
And Museveni must be convinced that the discussion is also for his good.
For his good, yes.
So
Chris,
that means that
I can say-
we shed away. Let's first abandon the power struggles.
Yeah.
What in Uganda is not politics, it's power struggle.
Yeah.
I've not seen politics in Uganda, but people struggling for power and to eat.
But you see, that's
So
exactly what happened in the regional forums.
Even the emphasis on the citizen right now is too far-fetched. A citizen is the cornerstone, important, yes, but we are dealing with already a deformed citizen.
Yes.
It first requires healing that citizen to even accept. It's like you're going to pick a street kid and take them to eat in Sheraton. It takes you time to even make them believe that this food belongs to them because of what they have been going through. So you don't just say, we need this street kid to come and discuss how Sheraton must be designed. You first have to bring them on board openly. Then when they have that understanding and the confidence that actually Sheraton is for everyone, including them, they become more productive on how Sheraton can be managed.
Gentlemen,
but at this moment, the citizen we are dealing with has been battered, has been living in subhuman conditions, and their psychology is that whoever comes to even request a sitting wants to overthrow President Museveni. And for them, overthrowing Museveni means there might be war again. Ah, Muleke Muse, whoever came to law. So, so we need to heal people fast. Because, and this must be what Museveni is concerned. If he wants his legacy, if he wants his children and grandchildren to still stay in Uganda and be respected 20 years, 30 years to come from now, he must say, look at Godba not as somebody who's upsetting power, but as somebody who's trying to play politics that is good for taking a country forward. We establish those values. Without that, Charles, you will be surprised one day that they are tear gas in Godba. Because perceptions matter. So Museveni should be brought on board. Best should be brought on board. And whoever refuses, Godba should say, I am a citizen empowered to go and tell the people what they ought to do to deal with you. Then I want to see citizens led by Godba, meaning the civil society, locked in a battle with the politicians led by egos. Until we see that battle, we're not going to see sense.
I agree with you, Chris.
I just wanted to Chris that number one is I believe President Museveni watches this show. I believe that people, the briefs he gets, he gets a brief about what was discussed on the show because there are people who are paid to do this job, to just watch. Even if they're not following the discussion, their job is to watch the show. And but we also have quite a lot of fans who believe in this discussion that we're having. So Leonard, I'll pick it up with you after a short commercial break. We'll be right back.